Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is going to be a video covering a lot of things. I do want to talk about mice, IEMs, headphones, keyboards, pads, etc. But I'm going to try to keep it very, very concise. This is just a video regarding what I kept at the end of 2024 going into 2025. And I think it's important because obviously there are a ton of good products, things that get reviewed highly because they deserve it. But things that I think ultimately, at the end of the day, I have to make a decision. Is this going to stay on my desk or not? Because there's just too many things and I don't have the storage for it. And I think it's important for you because it kind of gives you an idea of what my top products are. I do want to start with audio, and there's a few things that I obviously did not get to in terms of full reviews. I've got the 7Hz Timeless 2, and I do want to say that I will not be adding the 7Hz Timeless 2 to the wallhack certification tier list. I think that there is too much of a peak in that 2 to 3K region in the upper mids and the treble. It becomes too abrasive in game, and it does become too peaky with gunfire. And in those moments with multiple people shooting, it does become too obstructive to you being able to hear a lot of things going on. I think for music, different story. A lot of people might like this tuning, but for gaming, it's just not something that particularly works for me. They also require a lot of power, but primarily, again, I do think that in comparison to the Cadence, it does have a bit more of a fun tuning. It has a little bit more sub and mid bass. More of a V-shaped tuning in comparison to the Cadence. The Cadence does not work for me at all. It has a massive peak as well in the treble region, and in particular where a lot of gunfire is in a lot of titles, it becomes too piercing, even more so in my opinion than the 7Hz Timeless 2. And because of the reduction in sub bass and mid bass, the other things in the mix actually become even less apparent in comparison to the 7Hz Timeless 2. If I was to put the Timeless 2 on the wallhack certification tier list, it'd probably be around a C+, bordering a B-. The Cadence would not make it at all because it is just way too piercing on gunfire. So you can see that tuning, even taking a reduction in some of the sub bass and mid bass, isn't always a good thing. There's a lot of things that, unfortunately, in a multitude of titles, because of gunfire impacts like grenades and other audio effects that go on, it can be a little abrasive as well. Now, going in the opposite direction, I've got here the HBB Punch. Now, this is an absolutely wonderful IEM, and I love HBB for making these because there's not a lot of people taking a lot of chances in providing this much sub bass and mid bass. For me, this is easily one of my favorite listens for my recreational purposes. So when I want to get done gaming and get a little bit more fun, a little bit more bass, if I'm listening to some Kendrick Lamar, some Kanye West, I will swap to the HBB Punch. When I went on vacation, I actually took the Punch with me because listening to movies and shows, etc., I like to relax and have a different tuning than what I use for gaming related purposes, which is a little bit more studio reference like in tuning. These are absolutely amazing because with the level of bass, a level of the low end, which sounds really nice, actually, I think the mids still shine through, and things in tracks shine through with some great emphasis, with some good treble extension as well. I think the HBB Punch is a hit for people who are in that classification of bass heads. It's a beautiful IEM, one that does not work for gaming. Now, with the HBB Punch going in the opposite direction with the elevation in the lower end, one of the things that happens is you get a little bit of this blur effect. Almost imagine dropping a small object, a raindrop in your pool, a little ripple, right? Now, imagine that is an audio cue, a footstep. And imagine the audio cue becomes a massive object dropping in your pool. You get a bigger ripple effect. It's almost the same thing in game, particularly Apex Legends, for instance. When you hear an audio cue, the imaging just becomes less specific. It becomes more vague. And when you hear things, you still pick up some of those audio cues, but trying to just get that specific localization becomes more of a problem, a larger ripple in being able to pierce out those things. There's just too many times in game that you might find yourself saying, where did this guy come from? Or where's the audio? And that's because the lower end just mask too many things that are happening in game. And that's okay. They're not designed for gaming. Again, one of my favorite sets for recreational purposes will not be joining the wallhack certified tier list. And I give it up to HBB because he's one of the only people who are taking risks in that type of a tuning. And I do think it pays off for recreational purposes, music, movies, shows, etc. if you're looking for that punch in that lower end. I did recently receive the Kiwi Ears Division, and this is an interesting one because they actually sent with this, I didn't realize they were sending kind of like this memo of what to talk about and what to emphasize. That doesn't work for me because I have to analyze this specifically for the things that I look for in gaming, and that's not going to be on anybody's memo. That is a subjective understanding of the moments in game that we find ourselves in with third parties, fourth parties, and the level of precision that I would need in terms of separation, layering, etc. The division does not work for gaming. It is something that has quite a bit of sub bass, and that sub bass actually does roll through and become a little bit bloaty. When there's a lot going on, it turns into a situation like the HBB Punch. There's less of a ability to localize things, and there are too many times where you will find yourself saying, where did this come from? Because the separation and the layering just are not there. So when things are advertised for gaming, you guys need to be aware of the fact that it's not just about imaging. It's not just about, oh, this has this type of a tuning. Something can have a balanced tuning, but the separation, the layering, and the ultimate driver performance might not be there to parse out things and give you the information that you need in the moments you will find yourself in for competitive gaming. If anybody is in the final circle in a Masters 2 Predator lobby, you're going to have a struggle with the storm on your back with ultimates going off, third parties, fourth parties, etc. It's just too much, and it doesn't filter the information to you. So the division would not be something that I would put on my particular list. It's just something I think for $50, a lot of people might like the overall sound for music and things like that. Gaming, it's just not going to work on my particular list. And I think in this range at $50, obviously you are competing with things in the headset bracket. The HyperX Cloud Cloud 2, excuse me, is still a phenomenal headset. Obviously, this not coming with a microphone. So things that you need to consider when you are looking for a budget headphone is what on the headset realm would you be able to find that actually works for gaming and might have some additional goodies for you. Now, one thing that I actually did find to work is the Siren. The Siren is I think one dynamic driver, two balanced armature, if I recall correctly. It's kind of a similar shape to the Orchestra Lite, but it is vented a little bit in the on the front. You'll see a little hole drilled into the resin there. The Siren is a pretty dope IEM. It actually works quite well for gaming, not quite as good as the Mangird Tea Pro, but this will receive a dedicated video, and I will compare them specifically to the Mangird Tea Pro. They perform quite well, and like the Grit that we recently reviewed, again, tunings that don't quite get to and tunings and driver performance that don't quite get to the Mangird Tea Pro, but perform very well. My favorite IEM this year, and I think a budget or kind of a price bracket buster, is the Mangird Tea Pro. Between the build, the aesthetics, the faceplate, the unboxing, everything here is a pristine experience. And this tuning obviously gets an A on the wallhack certified tier list because I think it's a tuning that works flawlessly in a multitude of titles. Between the imaging, the separation, the imaging not just horizontally but vertically for battle royales, it's just an experience where you never find yourself in that scenario of saying, where did this guy come from? Usually then it's placed on you, and that's what we want from a good wallhack certified tier list IEM or headphone. We want the blame to be placed on us, not on the audio source that you are using. You don't want that to be an inhibiting factor in your overall competitive gameplay. Mangird Tea Pro, absolutely amazing. And I think this particular tuning, if anybody has, let's say, the Arete, it does do a better job with weaning down that gunfire and having a little bit more air in that region as well. So if anybody had some issues with gunfire on the Arete, it is handled a little bit better on the Mangird Tea Pro, and a tuning that feels a little bit warmer, a little bit more fun, as opposed to analytical and more studio-like on the Arete. Two great IEMs, but the Mangird Tea Pro definitely is my kind of like price bracket buster of the year, which is why you'll see it highlighted on my list. I think it is one of the best picks throughout the entirety of the wallhack certified tier list right now. In terms of a high-end IEM, I think my favorite high-end IEM that I tested this year was the FIO. The FA19, absolutely killer. Mangird Tea Pro, absolutely phenomenal, particularly for the price range. Now, I have a lot of mice on my table right now. You guys can see I've got the Vaxi Sora right here, and this is going to be my #1 mouse right now. I'm just playing like an absolute animal with it, and I do have the X2H there and the XM2 4K. The XM2 4K is in a close competition right now with the Vaxi Sora because they are something that are kind of in the same camp. Like, I can transfer to one or the other. The Sora, a little bit flatter, a little bit more narrow. And with the Sora, I just don't have as much of an issue that I have on the XM2, which is on the right side, this ridge here on the far right. With my ring finger and my pinky finger, every so often I hit that ridge. When I swap to the Sora, that issue obviously goes away, and where I rest my ring and my pinky finger is a little bit more comfortable. I also just feel a little bit more aggressive on the Sora because it is flatter and more narrow. But again, this is like a very close battle between the mouse that I would refer to as my main. Again, right now I'm leaning to the Sora, but the XM2 has been the XM1 or the XM2 have been my main mouse for so long. When I hit Predator twice in Apex, I was on the XM1. You guys know that. I've referred to that now several times. So it has a sweet spot for me, and it's just the shape that obviously works for me and that I perform exceptionally well on. So my top two mice would obviously be the Sora and the XM2. The X2H is a little bit modified, obviously, shape-wise, but obviously also something that I can swap to readily and not kind of feel like I'm adapting to something entirely different. And then the Ergo mice of the year for me, I've got the Feynman as well as the G Pro Superlight Dex. The G Pro Superlight Dex is exceptionally underrated. It is the only ergonomic mouse on the market where you will kind of feel like your hand is in this like claw pinch with the way that the thumb curve is as aggressive as it is, and the way mouse 1 and mouse 2 kind of curve your index and middle finger into its ultimate resting position. It's like you are just pinching the front of the mouse. To me, it is the only mouse on the market that does that. For that reason, I am going to be keeping it. It's a great ergonomic mouse. For its size, it feels absolutely feather light. It's just a great and refreshing and new feeling ergo on the market. The #1 ergonomic mouse for me right now is the Feynman. You guys know I love magnesium mice. If you're somebody who absolutely hates holes, what I would recommend is for you to look at the Vaxi E1. It's very, very close. For me, the difference just came down to the fact that I love magnesium mice. I like picking up the mouse. I like it feeling cold. And for me, the performance that I'm getting on the Feynman, as well as the Vaxi E1, is just so close that I ended up keeping the Feynman over the E1. Both exceptionally good mice. And again, if you hate holes, go for the Vaxi E1. It is a much smaller ergonomic feel than the G Pro Superlight Dex. And overall, the in-hand maneuverability on the Feynman is definitely present and something that just feels aggressive for a ergonomic mouse. I also have the HitScan Hyperlight. I think this is one of the best small mice on that released this year. The shape feels new. It feels refreshing. It feels better than a Viper Mini or a Viper Signature Edition. I also will be keeping the Endgame Gear OP1 W4K, probably the best two small mouse releases of the year. And right now I'm kind of in a battle on which one I'll be using more between this and the OP1 W4K, but definitely two very unique shapes on the market. And I think the best two small mice moving into 2025. And while doing the video, I completely forgot about the Beast X. This is the fabulous Beast. It gets a ton of playtime and action on my desk still. Whenever I'm craving the final mouse shape, in my opinion, the Beast X is the better final mouse. It has absolutely phenomenal build integrity and the performance. I've had zero issues whatsoever. I do like the fact that they have continuous drops and new colorways that drop on a routine basis. And again, the performance, the weight, and the build integrity are top notch. It is going to compete in my small category for me for the OP1 8K as well as the hit scan hyperlight. And for keyboards, it's just absolute mayhem right now. What I can say is every board here on the desk is good. The performance feels great. Boards are very competitive. It is becoming almost like indistinguishable moving from one to another in terms of gaming performance. If you're looking for a solid mechanical board, I've got the ND75 here, and then it also comes in a low profile. I prefer the low profile. I think the low profile feels super, super good, and the aesthetics are just really, really nice. Everything just feels exceptionally good from a typing perspective. The only thing on the low profile is the angling leading up to spacebar from a resting position. It's a little easy to accidentally hit spacebar at times, and that would be my only complaint for gaming. If you're looking for, though, a 75 or a 65, the ND series is exceptionally good. Moving, though, to the Hall effect lineup, there is just a lot to like from a lot of these boards. Even the Wraith board feels really nice if you're looking for something that is translucent. Obviously, it doesn't feel quite as heavy duty as some of the other boards, but overall, like, there's just absolutely nothing that I'm really noticing in terms of a typing experience. Everything feels fluid, fast, and the gaming performance on the Wraith board felt great. The aesthetics, if you have anything with light blues, etc., I do think they did a pretty solid job. The Halo 65 has received a lot of hype. I think it's absolutely well-deserved. The board feels fantastic in-game in terms of performance, and the Newfie 75 low profile is one of my favorite boards this year. And I will say that in terms of like my preferences right now, I'm still testing this board, so we'll get to some more testing. But the Newfie 75 is probably my keyboard of the year. The thing in terms of price, in terms of aesthetic, in terms of that low profile performance and Hall effect performance, there is just nothing I can really complain about with that board. It is what I am actually using primarily over some keyboards that I have that are hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I can't recommend the Newfie 75 low profile enough. I do have the new carbon board from WL Mouse. I love the aesthetic of this board, and you're either going to love the aesthetic or hate it. I'm still testing this board, and I'll do a bit more information about it when I get the new mouse that comes. But overall, like, the performance felt fine to me. I don't have an issue with really anything other than my spacebar could use a little bit of lube. Other than that, like, I think it's a good board for sure. So again, I'll get to more information. The board that I am unquestionably and unequivocally loving, though, is the Newfie 75 low profile. I think it's absolutely amazing. The aesthetic to match, and again, a reasonable price. And I know you guys have seen in a lot of my videos from Angry Meow, this is something I picked up myself. I just loved the aesthetic on the back. It's got Space Invaders there, kind of like an old school gaming look. It's got a brushed purple finish. I absolutely love this board. I do use it for gaming. The only thing I wish is there's a little bit too much movement and flex when hitting it at the top left, which is particularly an area that we hit a lot with WASD. There's just quite a bit of movement. Overall, though, the aesthetics, the build here, I mean, some of the best lubing from a company that I've ever had for a keyboard, but obviously it's got that price point to match. I think this set me back over $500. So again, for 1/5 of the price, great gaming performance and feel and aesthetic from the Newfie. I know I didn't address headphones. The headphones that I have tested this year, the HD490S is still the best in my opinion. Just a absolutely phenomenal performer in a multitude of titles, and being able to swap from the velour to the cloth ear cups, depending on the title, to bring out different frequencies. To me, it just worked very well and exceptionally comfortable. In terms of accessories, my favorite cable is from Effect Audio. I loved the Eros S1. I picked up the S2, the Ares S2, and the Cadmus 2. I have the Cadmus 2 right now on my Mangird Tea Pro, and there are slight variations in the sound that you can pick up moving from the different materials utilized. Copper clearly bringing out the lower end a little bit more, making it feel a little bit more full. Again, right now my pick is the Cadmus 2 between the 3 cables, but you don't need to spend that much money on a cable. The Moon Shadow from Tripowin is, I think, $30 on Amazon. I absolutely love this cable, and I use it on a lot of my IEMs. I think this is really, really good, especially if anybody is in need of a budget option that feels a lot better than the default cables that the IEMs come with. In terms of ear tips, I use the SpinFit W1s or I use Ascend ear fits, either the Lights or the Max ASMR. I test the 3 different ear tips on all of my IEMs and tip roll to see if I get any appreciable differences. But really right now, like, these are the only 3 tips that I am using. Again, Ascend EarFit Lite, SpinFit W1s, at least I think if I remember correctly, these are the lights, but whichever the gray one is, and the Ascend EarFit Max ASMR. 3 great ear tips. Getting to mouse pads, I just want to talk about things that have made somewhat of an impression on me, at least things that I've tested recently or things that I still swap to. The Genesis Pro from PadSmith, I recently did a video on this. This is probably my main pad right now. It's just a beautiful cloth pad with a great mixture between aesthetic and performance. Super smooth, on the faster side, and the Alpha Cell V2 base is just firm and very consistent. You guys can check out that video, again, posted pretty recently. The Lethal Neptune Pro, this is my favorite pad from Lethal to date. I love the textile that's used here. It's like on the harder side, but it's very tightly woven and just comes off very consistent, very durable, and something that has held up for me for a very extensive amount of gameplay. The base is dope and it does not move on my desk. I love the size of it, and overall it's just a great performer, and it was one of the unique pads that released this year. The Vaxi PC for $28. This pad is absolutely fantastic, and I have been using the new Key 83 from Artisan. Like, the surface feel here is very similar, and I am noticing that, like, my performance just feels a little bit better on the Vaxi PC. You pick up more texture because it's not as tightly woven on the surface itself. But overall, I just find my performance to be somewhat similar in feel. But overall, like, for $28, the Vaxi PC is pretty dope. But I do need to continue to test the Key 83. I don't think this is like a Hien successor. It does feel like a completely different pad than the Hien as well as the Atsu, but one that kind of falls into like the speedier camp. It does feel great so far, though. Now, the Tang Dao, obviously, they do have multiple versions of the Tang Dao now. You can see the little waifu collection here. Obviously, if this is your aesthetic, the foam is great in terms of its foam density. It's on the softer side. For me, obviously, the waifu isn't something that I usually keep on my desk, and I do like the bright, vibrant version of the pad where the cat's kind of like daydreaming for a fish. Now, the reason I like the Tang Dao is because it's a nice alternative to something like a Artisan Zero. To me, it feels more consistent, it feels more durable, and something that I have kept in my rotation. Speaking of the Artisan Zero, the new Hyperion is basically a Artisan Zero with modifications. It does feel great. The foam density here is nicely chosen in terms of the one that they're releasing first. It does still collect dust and hair particles kind of like a Zero, but this is probably the closest thing we've gotten like dead on to a Artisan Zero, and does feel like it does improve upon things slightly, like the X and Y differential, and it's supposed to have like better heat dispersion, so there should be some better consistency in the glide during like long duration of use. So definitely something I'm still testing, but feels really good, like a Artisan Zero or a Tang Dao. Now, the 2 hard pads that I have enjoyed the most this year are the Kinex, which I do fully intend to do a Kinex by you. This is a hard pad that is obviously a glass core, but the top of it is coated with this proprietary blend from TJ Exclusives. It feels almost like silicone-y, organic to the touch. The performance of glide on the pad, to me, at least my version, is on the speedier side, and it just feels really good. Like, I have no issues in terms of stopping power, and it's just a beautiful pad where the image pops really, really well because it's on the top layer of the pad. So compared to glass, where the design is on the bottom of the glass. I mean, this is just absolutely beautiful. And the Kinex by You that you guys have all been showing me, just absolutely awesome. In terms of ultimate performance for glass pads that released this year, I really enjoy the Beast. I think it's the fastest of the glass that I have tested this year, or close to the fastest. But I like the fact that it has a little bit of a texture to it, so I can get a better sense of where my mouse is. There's some glass pads that feel really silky, almost like you're moving your mouse through a substance, where this has more of a textile to it, or more of a texture to it, excuse me. It just feels really good and is super fast. And I just find I don't have any issue coming to a complete and abrupt stop. I think it's one of the best glass pads that have released through present. So that's really where I'm at, guys. That is going to be it for this one. I know it's a super, super lengthy video, but hopefully it sheds some light on things that I am primarily using in my rotation right now, and things that I have decided to keep from this year and last year moving forward into 2025. And hopefully 2025 brings some great ingenuity and something new in terms of pads and mice and IEMs. That's going to be it for this one, guys. I hope it helped. If it did, please leave a sub to the channel. See you guys in the next review. Peace.